Hello and welcome from the West Tennessee STEM Hub. Today we're going to be talking about one of the kits made available to you through our lending library, the Cubelets Robot Blocks Kits. In this video, we're going to go over which Cubelet block does what. We'll also include some PDF links down below that include a getting started guide as well as information on each block. Cubelets are a way for kids ages 4 and up to learn what we call tactile coding. There are 17 blocks that connect to each other magnetically. Each block has a predefined function, which we'll be going over in a bit, that when combined with other blocks add up to a working robot. So each of the blocks falls under one of 3 categories. 1, sense blocks that take in information. 2, think blocks that can modify that information, and 3 act blocks that respond to that information. So for your Cubelets robot power source, you've got the battery block. It's a dark navy blue color. It's categorized as a think block, but I like to talk about it separately. This is because the other think blocks aren't always required to have a functioning robot, but the battery block is always required. So your battery block has one side with an on-off switch that's highlighted in the picture with a yellow square. It also has this bright green LED light that turns on when your battery is working. That's highlighted in a green square in the picture. And then you also have a small micro USB port highlighted in an orange square in the picture that's used for charging. There are 4 sense blocks, the knob, brightness, distance, and temperature blocks. They're all black with 5 magnetic connector sides and one side that senses changes in your robot's environment. The knob sense block has a dial on one side of it. You can think of this as like a light dimmer switch or a volume control dial. The brightness block has what looks like a camera lens on one side. This block has a sensor inside of it that detects how much light is hitting it. The distance block has a side with 2 circles on it. It has a sensor in it that detects how far away another object is. It's accurate between 10 and 80 centimeters, or between about 4 and 32 inches. So if you're too close or too far away from the detector, it won't work as well. The temperature block has a little thermometer in it. You might be able to see it here. It's in blue. It works in temperatures between 0 degrees Celsius, that's 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and 35 degrees Celsius, that's 95 degrees Fahrenheit. There are 5 act blocks that are all clear, which is neat because you can see inside the block. They are the drive, rotate, speaker, flashlight, and bar graph blocks. Each of these blocks has the 5 magnetic connector sides and one side that does or shows an action. The drive block has a small motor inside it and 2 elongated wheels. These can move your robot in one direction along a relatively flat surface. Now I've got my knob block, battery, and the drive block connected. So I'm going to show you what happens when they're working together. So turn on the battery, got the green light showing. And then I crank my knob block, which makes the wheels spin. You'll also notice that when the blocks are working and communicating together, they all have these flashing green LED lights. Here's the one on the drive block. That tells you that your blocks are working and communicating effectively. The rotate block has one side that connects magnetically to another block and also rotates it. This time I've got my distance block, the battery block, and the rotate block. So let's see how these work together. Turn on my battery, and then I'm going to use my hand to interact with the distance detector. The speaker block has a small speaker with an amplifier on one side. It makes a chirping noise when connected. So this noise can be a little much for some people, especially those who are especially sensitive to loud repetitive noises. So just a warning. This time I've got my brightness block, the battery, and the speaker block. So I'm going to start out with my hand covering the lens of the brightness block. And then I'm going to turn on the battery. So the rate at which the speaker block chirps corresponds to how much light is hitting the brightness block. The flashlight block has a small LED bulb in it. When turned on, the block emits a beam of white light. I've got the knob block again, the battery block, and the flashlight block. I'll turn the battery on, crank the knob. Flashlight turns on, increases brightness with the knob, and decreases brightness too. The bar graph block has one side that shows a light up bar graph that corresponds to how much information your sense block is sending to your act block. With the knob block and battery, here's what happens with the bar graph block. So I crank the knob, and the bar graph lights up. There are 7 different think blocks in a variety of colors. They're not required to have a functioning robot, but they do give your robot more capabilities. When including think blocks in your robot, it's important to consider the arrangement of the blocks. Because robots first sense, then think, then act, you need to put a think block between a sense and an act block for your robot to work. The passive block is light green. It doesn't do anything but pass along information from one block to another. It's common to use these passive blocks as counterbalance in your robot so it doesn't fall over. The inverse block is red. It takes information from the sense block and then tells the act block to do the inverse of what it would have done without the inverse block. So without the inverse block, cranking the knob on this robot increases the brightness of the flashlight block. And turning it the other way decreases the brightness. Now, when I add the inverse block between the knob and the battery, having the knob cranked all the way down leads to a fully bright flashlight block, while cranking it up dims the light. So the blocker block is dark green, and as its name suggests, it blocks information from passing between blocks. Power still goes through, but that's it. The minimum block is light brown. When placed between a sense block and an act block, the minimum block only allows the act block to function when the sense block's input hits a certain minimum threshold. The maximum block is dark brown. So when placed between a sense block and an act block, the act block will only function when the sense block's input hits a certain maximum threshold. The threshold block is orange with a black dial on one side. It does look similar to the knob block, but remember the knob block is a sense block, so it takes in information from the robot's environment. The threshold block, being a think block, takes information from the sense block and then modifies it. The Bluetooth block is blue, and it also comes in a Bluetooth hat form. And either way, add them to your robot to give it Bluetooth capability. When your robot has Bluetooth capability, you can connect it to a Cubelets app that is available on both Android and iOS devices. With this app, you can control your robot from your phone or tablet. Another neat feature with the Cubelets robot blocks are these Lego adapter pieces. You've got one side with the magnetic connector that connects to a Cubelets block, and then another side that is Lego compatible. And you've got options here. So you can actually combine your Lego pieces and your Cubelets robot. A Cubelets robot kit at the West Tennessee STEM Hub Lending Library contains at least one of each of the 17 Cubelet blocks, plus some of the Lego adapter pieces. If you're interested in learning more about the Cubelets robot kits at the Lending Library, please feel free to contact Miss Lisa Riley at the University of Memphis Lambeth campus, or you can contact Dr. Stephanie Ivy or Miss Levita Means at the University of Memphis main campus in the Herf College of Engineering. Also, be sure to check out the Lending Library website at westtnstem.org/STEM-lending-library, where you can read about operations at our Lending Library, frequently asked questions, and more.